Hello folks and welcome to the show today with myself, Shane Stapleton. Delighted to say I'm joined by Nickey Brennan today. Michael RoVernie isn't around and we're brought to you by OurGame. Use the promo code OurGame, you get 15% off. I do have a clip from Michael RoVernie which I might play in a little while. He's given me his review on how the Tipperary Limerick game went. I haven't watched it, but I have a feeling I know what it's going to be like. But Nickey, sum up that hurling weekend for us.
Look, for a start, if you were from Leinster, I suppose you'd probably not really know the games were on at all because they got so little coverage. Very little mention in a lot of media outlets, I'm afraid to say, and I'm in that out myself. Obviously, as you know, Shane, and listeners will know. But really, Leinster was the rotten child. It was dismissed on Friday morning on RTE. It saw nothing. We had obviously the Kilkenny and Galway game was live on RTE, but the rest were almost forgotten. So I think we feel very left out of it in Leinster, and it's a little bit annoying at the moment. We had no live hurling game on Saturday night, when it was pretty obvious that one of the big games could have been fixed for Saturday evening. But having my rant out of the way now at this stage, and we'll get into the individual games, it wasn't competitive games. Of course, they won't have the whole profile of Munster hurling. I'm well accepting that to be the case. Now, the game in Galway, which I attended, was a very competitive game. There wasn't blood and trust in it because they know they're likely to be meeting again, possibly. But Dublin and Wexford and indeed Antrim. I mean, Antrim now deserve. I watched that game on G ago. I thought they were excellent. And I always thought they had a shout going up there to Corrigan Park. I had a long chat, not formally, with Darren Gleeson. I know Darren well. And he was very disappointed with Kilkenny. He didn't expect to win, but he thought he might get a bit more from his players. He had a lot of the players coming back after the club championship. They hadn't had a lot of time to bed in, done a little bit of training. But I clearly think that targeted Wexford and will target Dublin and Carlow as well, and has the answer. And Sambo will be on the programme later on, and it'll be interesting to see what he has to say. So I think they did very, very well up in Corrigan Park. It was not an absolute shocker to me at all. They have turned over teams. And last year when Kilkenny played in Corrigan Park, Kilkenny, it took them into the second to kind of put Antrim away. So they're a decent team in Corrigan Park, like playing there, and in Carlow on Saturday night. I mean, for a long time, Carlow stayed with Dublin. There wasn't a lot in it. Maybe a little goalie error at the end. Maybe cost them a little bit to build a bit of momentum. And particularly the introduction of Fergal Whiteley was a big thing for Dublin. He grabbed a goal and a point, I think it was, and he made a difference when he came on. But it was. But having said that, I did think Carlow would probably put it up to Dublin. Because bear in mind, Carlow scored 214 against Galway in Salt Hill the previous week. So they've been performing decently enough now, and I think they'll be disappointed after the two games to have gotten something out of it. And then, of course, there was the game in Salt Hill, which we'll talk about in a moment.
Yeah, for sure. And look, if I just read out the results first off, in Leinster there, you've mentioned it already, Antrim beating Wexford 222 to 220. That was an excellent game, very exciting. Carlow 22, Dublin 124. Carlow were leading by 4, I think, in the first half. Galway 223, Kilkenny 29 points. In Munster then, Cork 324, Clare 326, and Tipperary 18 points, Limerick 227. Do you ever, Nickey, on your computer, you might have like a screensaver or something like that, and it brings up like a word a day or something like that, just to try and give you a new word? Well, it wasn't a new one for me, but when I saw it coming up on my screen this morning, dystopia, I was like, geez, that's very fitting today, because what happened with Tipperary, I couldn't predict that it would ever be quite that bad.
Well, I met Clare. I won't go into any detail other than to say 2 days before they played Clare in the league semi-final, I was at an event that Tim was at, not a J event, I should say, and we had a good chat. And you know, I like Liam actually. I must say, he's a good guy. And I felt that night that he was confident enough going into that Clare game, in the sense that he was happy Tipperary had put decent behind. He appeared, and Mikey Bevans, the rest of them, they appeared to have had put a team together that was capable of taking on whatever Munster at least would throw at them, and that's what they were up at. And he was expecting to do very well against Clare. Now, obviously, there's no question about it. Tipp went off the rails that day against Clare, and it left many questions. Yes, I think the thing about it is, frees can go wrong any day, and there was 3 or 4 free takers they had that day, and you know what? Nothing would right for them. So you cut them a little bit of slack, but my concern was the psychological impact of the way they were bowled over by Clare, and how Liam would get them back together for the championship. Now, he obviously was did best he could, I think, after that game to try and see how he would get the guys back. And I'm sure he was confident that would be the case. He didn't just dismiss them. He saw them in training every evening they were training, and he felt they still had a lot. But clearly going into yesterday's game would have been reasonably confident, but it went all wrong for him. I mean, I think challenge, he's now talking in terms of maybe making a lot of changes for the next game against Waterford. And if you have to kind of make so many changes, that puts doubt into an awful lot of people's minds, players and selectors, and you begin to lose the general public a little bit there as well. Well, general, I mean Tipperary reporters. So I think he has a real challenge on his hand now, and it's ironic that the next game should be down to Waterford, of all places.
Yeah, where Davy Fitz is waiting, and obviously there's been a small bit of acrimony between the two, even though, it hasn't spilled over just yet, but it feels like it's been bubbling over even in the comments. And even, I suppose, it went towards Derek McGrath after the game yesterday, but we'll come back to that later. But watching Limerick, right, it seems like everything they do is just so precise. Like they're hand passing, they're drawing the man and popping it off, shooting when they've worked the ball around enough so that somebody's got a very clear shot. They do everything right, and their setup with puck outs is brilliant. Like everything is on point. Whereas Tipperary looked like a team that were trying to play like Limerick, but obviously they're only trying this a short period of time. And when it broke down really badly. And I actually thought Tipp did a lot of good stuff in the first 25 minutes. But when it started do you know what cost them? Like Limerick are world class at the basics. Tipperary's basics let them down time and time again. Normally you'd say, geez, one thing, don't let Tipperary in because they're lethal if you give them a chance. Sean Hayes took a touch on the stick before taking his shot, which allowed Nickey to get on top of him and make a brilliant save. Later on, there was a ball being played up into the Tipperary defence, which Tipp were kind of marking somewhat zonal. Let's say, for example, Ronan Maher would mark one side of Aaron Gallan and Craig Morgan would stand the other side. And he cut out a ball brilliantly, or certainly positionally he had done well. And then he put his stick to a ball that he could have just caught. It was spilled, Gallan got on the ball, and Ronan Maher had to knock him to the ground. And it's just basics. And then Jason Ford missing chances he normally would tap over in his sleep. Jake Morris getting blocked down 3 times. Another time dropping a shot short to the goalkeeper. And it was just like watching a Tipperary team that they just were a bit of a bedraggled bunch, really, Nickey. A team that was trying to play like Limerick, but when things went wrong, their pretty poor record over the last couple of seasons, I wonder, did they just go inside themselves and just, capitulate?
Well, I think they lost to Clare in the league. People will talk about the league in negative terms, but that loss to Clare in the league, I think, had a big effect on Tipperary. It has lowered the confidence both within the mentor and within the team itself, and I think that came out. And that's just the way it is. Now, I would say, you talk about a lot of things there about Limerick. The reality of it is that Limerick should have been into this game with a loss against Clare. Let's call a spade here. I mean, for 45 minutes, Limerick were very mediocre against Clare, and Clare blew the finish. And there's no point in flowering it any other different way. But when Clare, the difference here is when Limerick saw the gap opening up against Clare, they went for it and were able to pull it out of it in the end. And they gained confidence from that victory against Clare at the end of the day. And I knew there would be a much different position yesterday for Tipperary. I mean, history would show that Tipperary over the years have a good record against Limerick, but obviously not in recent times. And Limerick were always going to raise the game, particularly in the Gaelic grounds. Their first championship match at home since won 4 in a row, and many supporters would like to think the first match in a row for them. So they were up for that yesterday, and a big crowd turned out from Limerick yesterday for yesterday's game. And the thing about Limerick is, if you have to do 2 things against Limerick. If you want to model yourself on the Limerick and play the Limerick style of game, that's not going to happen very easy. It'll take time. It took Kilkenny a while to do that, and I think they probably managed to kind of get the better of that now. And I'm not referring really to the game below in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. I think Kilkenny have gotten better at that, mixing the short game with the longer game into the open spaces, which Limerick are good at. Tipp have not mastered that yet because they have players in positions that are still trying to gel as a team and in the inter-county scene. The other thing as well is, apart from doing what Limerick doing, you also have to try and counteract what Limerick are doing, in the sense that for puck outs and all that, you need to have people marked up and be tight on people, and don't be giving them the option to create space from the back and move the ball down the field. And I think that's something that anybody who's playing Limerick are just going to have to get better at, because Limerick are the best in the they're the best ever being at it. And I think that's a reason why I think Tipperary were under a bit of pressure yesterday. Now, I didn't see much of the game, Shane, because I was on my way back from Galway, but I was listening to it on the radio, and it was a challenge for Pádraig Lodge and Brian Carroll, quite frankly, to keep the leaders' interest up. Such was the one-way nature of the game.
Yeah, do you know, like I thought, obviously Tipperary shooting was very, very poor again, and like you mentioned the impact of the Clare game, and I'd agree with you. It just looks like confidence is so shaky with Tipperary at the moment that any bit of a setback at all, and they don't seem to be able to recover. But like during the first half, they were going okay, and it was 6-all after, what was it, 24, 25 minutes. But then if you look at the next series of shots, Jason Ford misses a really, really easy chance for him. Jake Morris drops one short. Like, he had an opportunity to take on Diarmuid Burns, a player that he's certainly faster than, and he sort of hesitated. And everything about Tipperary just screamed hesitation to me. And you know, the stuff that they did quite well in the first 25 minutes, it made it a very boring game because both teams, they're almost setting up to contain each other. So like if someone's carrying out the ball, they're trying, rather than constantly engaging and looking to directly turn a guy over, they're looking to limit their options and track the runners and eventually force someone to hit a 50-50 ball. And Tipp did that okay for a while. But then the other controllables, like your own puckouts, Tipp didn't seem to massively have a plan when they go short, because obviously you do have to go short because Limerick are so good in the half back line. But the ball would go out to, let's say, Craig Morgan. And it was a case of, on you go, Craig, just, you know, take your man on and see how far you get. You know, like, so every man was an island. Like, and I see Tipp in the warm-up working in threes, you know, the whole three-man weave where you're kind of crisscrossing each other and hand passing. And I was looking at the way they weren't working it out from the back. Just a guy would run out and hope for the best. And I'm like, well, what's the whole point of a three-man weave if this isn't priced into coming out with your short puckouts or going back to the keeper when you see that Peter Casey's in your face and he's not getting out of the way. And then also I look at the centre-back area and I'm like, right, so through the league, we haven't figured out how we're going to work the ball out from the back. And we've also used the league to play two guys centre-back. And then when it comes to championship, neither of them are playing there. So it just seemed to me that Tipperary had used up the whole league, but I'm not entirely sure what they achieved from it, Nickey. And I know you didn't see the game, but you probably shared some of those fears even coming into it for Tipp.
I did. I think the fact that the game against Clare, I go back to the league semi-final, I think that the fact that an awful lot of doubts emerged from that game. I think Tipp had a real problem trying to address those doubts, and now they probably have even greater doubts coming into the championship and now coming into the Waterford match. Although I do see one of the text there on the program here is talking about that Tipp could go down to beat Waterford in Park, and they could very well do that. I mean, Tipp's reputation and the reputation of those players is on the line. There's people talking about this being the worst Tipperary team since the noughties and something like that. I think we just need to be very careful after just one championship match. That might very well turn out to be the case. But I have a feeling that within the Tipp set up now at training tomorrow night, there'll be a lot of soul searching, and he'll probably want to have to make changes. I'm not sure, does he have all the options that he'd probably like to have? But I do think that Tipp will go in against Waterford in Welsh Park. There's expectations on Waterford now. The fact that they lowered the colours of Cork, there'll be big expectations now that Waterford could very well be one of the big contenders against Limerick this year. Clare still are there. Cork are kind of living on kind of oxygen is running out at the moment, but they might not be gone yet. So I don't think we'll just write off Tipperary yet. But yesterday was a very bad day off us, and I could understand Tipperary people who were commenting on it on the screen here being very disillusioned because it was a huge beating and it was a frustrating afternoon for Tipperary. And looking at that game in isolation, you wouldn't be giving them much hope. But I still think there's some character in these guys, and Cal and Bevans have a decent track record with inter-county teams. So I just feel that we need to maybe just cut them a bit of slack, and that yesterday was a rotten day at the office, albeit 2 games in a row now, league semi-final and first round of the Munster Championship.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I thought they got a lot right in the first 25 minutes, and then like just basics time and time again let Tipperary down, as in just doing the wrong thing, the wrong options, stuff that Limerick don't do, looking after the ball, making sure you don't hand pass to somebody who's already been covered. And it was just like, obviously the pressure that Limerick put you under sort of forces you to make mistakes at times. But I do feel like, yes, the management got stuff wrong, and I think the way they picked the team, there wasn't probably enough fighters in there. people will say I'm biased, but I couldn't understand Dan McCormack not being involved at some stage. I remember saying that back a few years ago as well during the Winter COVID Championship. But let's talk about Limerick. I mean, the class they have is, it's undisputed. Keane Lynch seems to be back to top form. The battlers that they have throughout the pitch, everybody knows about them. Aaron Gallan's finishing for that goal. I presume you got a chance to see that. But
I did. I saw that goal. I did, yeah.
Now, whatever about Tipperary's defending, but it was funny, just as Diarmaid Byrnes was lining up the free from around midfield, and we know he's been a little bit ropey in the last couple of games with the frees. I was like, I wonder, is he going to miss-hit this? And the thing ends up dropping around, 20 yards out, and Gallan gets onto it. And the way he lashed it to the net, it reminded me of TJ Reid in the 2014 All-Ireland. Remember when he turned around the 21 and just lifted the net out of it? But incredible goal. And then, of course, the other side is what happened to Peter Casey. It's just... the entire place was in shock.
That puts everything into context, because the poor guy had to recover from a serious knee injury, I think, there not so long ago. Look at it, that's horrific. Nobody wants to see that. It was a terrible accident, and we can only wish him and his family well, because he's been through an awful lot. And right now, the return to hurling and things like that are not important to him. He's in back recovery so that he can have a good and active life. That's the most important thing at this particular stage. But Shane, in relation to Limerick, obviously I was down at the league semi-final with Kilkenny down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and I just never felt that Limericks weren't tuned into that game at all. And we spoke hours in this area to John Kiley, and I just never felt he did talk about being outdone by Kilkenny and all of those sort of phraseologies. But quite honestly, I never read anything into that. I think he was yes, on the day Kilkenny did come up with a decent performance, but I think he didn't shed any tears. And I'd say when they went back to training the Tuesday night, he was happy as he did not want to be playing Clare in a league final. And I think the players he has with Limerick and a number of the newer guys that came through the league, he has outstanding hurlers. He has outstanding individuals as well in terms of the character of them. They're big physical men they're superbly honed for championship hurling. And they're just the best around, to be quite frank about it. They're best around now, and quite honestly, could easily be the best around. If they win 5 in a row, all arguments are off on that score, to be quite frank about it. So they are the team to beat, there's no question about it. And you have to credit everybody with Limerick. I've nothing but admiration for them. But I mean, at the same time, every one of their opponents will be out to try and lower their colours. Clare almost, and were sick after it. But look, it's not all plain sailing. Maybe if Clare got him again, maybe Waterford just might have gotten something this year. I see a texture there forecasting a Clare Limerick Munster final. At the moment, that's probably fair enough, but do not dismiss Waterford. And I'd like to think that with Clare or with Tipperary and Cork, they may have something to say about the Munster Championship yet. I think their hurling pedigree would make them want to really, really put a big effort in the next couple of matches and get something out of it. But no, Munster is a tough place to be. And I'll talk more about TV coverage and that, because I'm seeing some text coming up on the screen that I want to comment on later on.
Yeah, okay. Well, I see another comment here from Liam Macko once saying Limerick didn't even get out of second gear. And I have a theory on this, Nickey, that when they play, just as a team, the way they always do, which is nobody's trying to take on the heroic stuff. There's always just like hand pass until somebody is put in space and they get an uncontested shot. It doesn't always work like that, but their intention is always to make a hero of their teammate by giving them a nice ball. And like, I look at the team here, and there was no one that was really a 10 out of 10. There was a few lads that were like maybe 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10. And people would say, geez, Limerick can be so much better than that. Most of them were 7 or 8 out of 10. But I would say that they were 10 out of 10 as a team because everyone was willing to give up the aspiration of being a 10 out of 10, of going out and trying to be a hero. I think that the price for everyone being a 7 out of 10 is the team is 10 out of 10. And I'm not actually sure that they can play all that much better. Now, I know you didn't see the game, Nickey, but like that whole theory that, the players are giving up the chance to be a 10 out of 10 so that their team can be.
I know, and I think, look, the mantra of John Kiley is that every player must be a 10 player every day, and that, of course, that doesn't work. But I mean, when you're seeing Limerick and what they're doing, they're making it look so easy, particularly if the opposition is not playing well, as was the case yesterday. I mean, you're seeing it. I mean, the game that was in Pearse Stadium yesterday as well. I mean, there was some good individual performances there as well. There was good spraying of the ball around. it was just, it didn't have the same sort of atmosphere, if one could put it that way. I mean, there's a comment on the text there about crowds that are there. I mean, there was 20,000, 30,000 down at the Munster games. There was just under 10,000 in Salt Hill. Atmosphere is part of that as well. But there was points scored by the likes of Gavin Lee and by John Donnelly, Tom Phelan, Martin Owen, and Conor Whelan yesterday that would fit into anything that Limerick would have done. So there's no doubt about it. So Limerick were so dominant yesterday that you're right to have all those accolades. And you know, again, we'll come back to TV in a moment because there's one or two lads there just flashing up texts about that. I'll have to chat about that later on as well.
Yeah, there's actually so many comments here. It's hard to find them now, and we love having all those comments. But Nickey, just before I come back to that TV thing, I might just play whatever RoVernie has come out with. I might just play it and see what he has to say. It's like a minute and a half or something like that. So let's hear what the man who's on babysitting duty today has to say.
Well, I met him on the way to the match yesterday in Galway.
It's your old buddy Vernie here. Brings me great sadness not to be with you on today's show. Unfortunately, otherwise engaged. Whatever about the sadness for me about not being involved in today's show, I'm sure pales in comparison to the sadness, hurt, pain that you're going through today. So many questions to ask you. What went wrong? Are the wheels coming off? Where's the energy? How do you turn it around for next week? Like a 15-point beating to Limerick, who were realistically only in third gear, you'd have to say, very, very worrying. I see questions been asked about whether Noel McGrath should be featuring. I see other questions saying that if Noel McGrath and Bonner Matter are kind of trying to come on and dig you out holes, you're in a bad spot. What happened yesterday? Is there a hangover from the league semi-final? Is there disquiet in the camp? So many questions. You're not going to be able to answer them all. I'm sure your head is frazzled today. I'm sure you're mired. I'm sure you probably didn't sleep last night, even though I'm sure you had 8 or 9 points to try and make you sleep and ease the pain. Can you turn it around for that? I cannot wait for that derby game next weekend. Cattle head back to Walsh Park against the Waterford side that he brought to an All-Ireland final and brought to a league title as well. And little Davy, obviously, in the other corner as well. It's going to be fascinating. But things are low in the Premier. I was going to say I don't take any satisfaction in it, but I have to say I take a fair degree of satisfaction in it. Best of luck, and I'll chat to Thursday.
Imagine having to listen to that, Nickey. Things are bad enough now, and I have to listen to that rot.
Yeah, I was talking to him yesterday on my way. We called in to get a cup of coffee in the place, and he was on his way to Croke Park to watch Dublin and Offaly. So look, some people have to get the short straws every now and again. So Ernie got the short straw yesterday. So he's probably needing to take Monday off, given what happened to his native Offaly yesterday in Croke Park.
Did you find it odd? I mean, I don't know if you've seen or heard the quotes yet, but I'll just read them out to you because, you know, Liam Cahill was talking about the game and he says, you know, we have to bring everything that wasn't there today. This is about the Waterford game coming at the weekend. We need to bring massive energy and aggression. Waterford are a very athletic team. Up to 18 months ago, they were branded as the second best team in the country. Now, this was when he was manager. Their former manager, which is obviously Derek McGrath, said whoever beats them goes up the steps of the Hogan stand. That's the reality of it. The same said person, I haven't heard sight nor light of him for the last 18 months, but that's there, it's in print. They're a serious team and the players seem to have found their style that really suits them and had it in an All-Ireland final, semi-final, National League title. They're hurling on all cylinders. We just have to be really ready to take them on. Now, if you're to read between the lines, Nickey, he's basically wondering, maybe Davy or Derek and Davy Fitz are somehow tight from their Sunday game time together and stuff like that. And basically talking about the players have found a style that suits them. So, there's been kind of Davy referring to taking over a Liam Cahill team that was low on confidence. There's sort of a bit of a cold war quietly going on there, maybe a proxy war via comments in terms of not necessarily referring to each other by name.
I wouldn't worry about things like that. I mean, after game, we were hammered the way he was yesterday by Limerick. What the hell does Liam say? He has to throw out a few lines like that and hope for the best. I mean, realistically, give him credit for actually coming out and facing the media and saying anything at all. He could easily turn around and say, "Look, lads, we were just out. We were lost yesterday. We didn't know where we were. We couldn't make any headway at all. There's no point in me talking to you." He made the sound bites, and that's all they are. They're just sound bites. Now, Cal's a decent skin. Look, Davey loves all this thing. I mean, he was on the TV yesterday. The camera veered onto him a few times. I understand at the game, and he was probably smiling himself. But I think, look, let's judge this when Tipp play Waterford the next weekend down in Welsh Park, and then we'll know a lot more about both teams, because there's going to be an edge to this. I don't know who's refereeing it yet, but there'll be a serious edge to this one. And I think, Cal has to say the right thing, but he's also saying it as well. Let's be just for the Tipperary supporters, but also for his own players. He wants to. I mean, a manager is not come out publicly and crucify his own players like that, but he will make subtle sounds, and the players are in no doubt that reputations are on the line here. Yes, Cal's reputation is on the line, but these players are on the line as well, because these guys are want to bring Tipperary back to their glory era. So, but they have a chance to redeem all that next weekend. They beat Waterford. If they beat Waterford next week, well, this next program Monday will be a different program altogether, and people may have a different view. So just park that for now, and let's see what happens. But it was a terrible day at the office for everybody involved with Tipperary, players, management, and supporters. They just to now bite their tongue, and let's hope it doesn't happen again, because if the same thing was the next Sunday, next weekend, then we have a different problem on our hands, Tipperary.
Okay, well, look, you were at Pearse Stadium to watch Galway 2-23, Kilkenny 29, and Kilkenny had themselves in a position to win the game, 2 points ahead going into injury time, and then I think it was Evan Nyland and Conor Whelan got the points to eventually level it up. What can you take from this game?
Well, first of all, it was a competitive game. Now, I think I'll allude then to some of the comments that are there. A texter talked about it being less than 10,000. It was a National League game. He's dead right. It's absolutely shocking, the small crowd that was in Pearse Stadium yesterday. I suspected there was going to be a big crowd going for Kilkenny. The game was live on TV. What I cannot understand, and just to comment on TV, there was 3 big hurling matches at the weekend. One of them should have been on RTE, and the other 2 should have been on RTE. I know the Cork-Clare game was on GA Go, but one of those 3 games should have been on Saturday evening. And let play the Wexford game okay, which GA Go I saw it. And I mean, there was probably one half camera down at Dublin and Carlow, down at the match in Carlow as well. But I mean, it's about scheduling as well. But look, Leinster games are not attracting huge crowds. It was a very small crowd in part for Kilkenny and Antrim, and not a huge amount then for Dublin and Wexford. And I totally accept that when it comes to drawing crowds, Munster will outshoot Leinster in a big way there. And I'm not suggesting, by the way, that these matches in Leinster, bar the one yesterday, are necessarily live TV games. I'm not at all making that case. I understand Munster will get those games live, and that's I'm okay with that. And I know some cases have to be shared with GA Go. I'm not making any case for that. I just feel that Leinster hurling is being dismissed very easily, and I think it's wrong. And I think from a Leinster Council point of view, given that the football championship is certainly so dominated by Dublin, given that the Leinster Hurling Championship is not drawing in anything like the crowds that one would like to see. The bottom line is that I would know, given my previous life, that Leinster Council income is going to be significantly reduced. And it is a province that has an awful lot of coaching and games development personnel that it funds. It's a province that funds a lot of physical developments around grounds. And it simply means that the pool of money for distributing around the counties is going to be a hell of a lot smaller as a result of the smaller crowds coming to its games. That's just the reality of life. I'm not making a big deal about it, other than that's how these things work. But as regards the game in Galway, it was an enjoyable game. It could have gone either way. I think Kenny, and I asked Derek this after the match, I mean, the fact that he came in with, and I asked it to Henry as well, the fact that Kilkenny came in with 4 automatic starters missing, how did that feel? I personally felt comfortable going over to Galway, even though those lads were missing. I felt the players coming in were getting a chance. Some have got multiple chances. And for the most part, Kilkenny did very well. I think it was a fair result. Now, the 2 points at the end when Kilkenny led, one was a free against TJ Reid, which I thought was harsh. It was right in front of where we were. And I thought it was harsh. And I asked Henry about it afterwards. And the only thing he said, it just was a great catch-all. He didn't comment about it. But look, Galway made a decision to bring on Evan Nyland, and while I know he's a very good forward anyway, but he's one of the best free takers around, and it was a good move by Henry and his colleagues, because he made a huge difference when he came on in terms of place balls. It hadn't been going right for Conor at all, and then Conor Whelan, who had an okay game, he popped it over the bar. A fair enough result, but one that probably Henry was relieved to get, as he said afterwards too. After 20 minutes, he was very happy how things were going. after 72 minutes, he was relieved to get the draw out of it, because the loss would have been a huge disappointment to him. Look, it wasn't the most intense match, but I think anybody who was watching Munster would think that it's all happening down there. Don't dismiss either of these two. They're reasonably decent chance of making the Leinster final again, but there's a couple of good matches to go now. Galway go down to Wexford this coming weekend, and Wexford badly need a win to back on the horse again. And whereas if Galway win, it puts Wexford in a bad spot. But you know what will happen at the end of the day? Wexford will still come up to Nolan Park in the last match and probably beat Kilkenny, which is what they do every year anyway.
Which is a mad thing. Do you know what? I was looking at the stats from the last 3 years. So the entire 2022 season, 2023 season, I'm talking about round robin games only, and what we've seen so far this year. Wexford have just 4 wins out of 12 games. 2 of them have come against Kilkenny. That's very strange. They're so inconsistent. They've beaten Laois once. They beat Antrim by 4 last year. And they've beaten Kilkenny twice, and otherwise they haven't won.
Yeah, but if you look at the game last Saturday up in Corrigan Park, I mean, the performance of Lee Chin, who delivered 211 and was just one of those great performances. I mean, I met him recently at the Leinster launch of the Leinster Championship, and you know, he's a huge man, and he just is so important to Wexford. Take away Lee Chin from that team on Saturday, and Antrim would probably have won a lot more comfortably. So I think, you know, if Tipperary have some soul searching to do this week, so have Wexford, because they'll be hugely disappointed. I wouldn't see getting defeated in Antrim being a shock to for any team. But I do think that the way Wexford were going, they had a decent league, and they should have. Although they, again, rather ironically, their last game in the league was a very poor performance against Clare, like Tipperary, ironically, and that form hasn't really come into the championship. I mean, they got a draw with Dublin, which is kind of something that's been generally happening over the last couple of years. But again, the form they showed earlier in the league has not been transferred into the championship. So Wexford will reflect a lot this week, but they do need more help from players too. Now, there's a few lads still missing, but I think that the text coming up there, Kilkenny will take more, missing 3 or 4 players, better result for them. Yeah, that's probably the case, all right. And for Derek Ling, he probably will. They have no game next weekend. They play Carlow the following weekend, and I obviously very low to say that Kilkenny can take it handy in that match. They can't. That's disrespectful to Carlow, because what they're doing is tremendous. But it does mean that if he has any players that are going to be out for a while, I know Cody, for one, will definitely not make the Carlow game. He's still in a boot. Mikey Carey's in a boot. So they may not have all of those back. Richie Reid picked up a knock yesterday, came off at the end. But they do have a week off now, and then they have the Carlow game. So in terms of getting ready for the Dublin game and the Wexford game, you know, if the injuries they have an opportunity maybe to the injuries maybe disappear or lessen significantly. So from Kenny's point of view, the schedule is working out that way. But look, this new hurling schedule that they're sharing, and this applies whether you're in Leinster or Munster, it's all happening in such a short period of time. You know, getting the TV coverage that people want is just not going to be possible. Equally, going to these games is week and week expensive for players. If players get injured, then there's little time to kind of recover from that. You may be out for a period of time, miss 4 or 5 weeks, and you could miss the main part of the championship. So this whole crammed season is a real problem. Pick up the newspapers now, or listen to television, or look at radio. For God's sake, the amount of coverage that's there for Gaelic games, and for hurling in particular, has diluted significantly. And a lot of people have been talking to me about it, and I certainly am not happy about it. Hurling is not getting the sort of coverage that it should be getting, to be quite frank about it, and something has to be done about it.
Yeah, look, I'd agree with you there. I'd also like to ask you about some of the Kilkenny players, like Mossy Keone got himself 4 points, John Donnelly the same, Cian Kenny 3, and Tom Phelan from your own club, Connie Shamrocks. He's only after coming back recently, he popped over 3 points. Great performance in the All-Ireland last year. Having him back firing on all cylinders would be huge. So I'm sure you were delighted to see him going well.
Absolutely. He only lives 2 fields behind the house here. So I was delighted to see him back. Obviously being selfish about it from a club point of view. And Joe Butler there from all the way from Mayo talking about Tom. We're very proud of him, Joe. Tom Phelan here in the parish. Look, Tom picked up an injury early in the year and was out for quite a while. He came back again Antrim and got a working 3/4 of the game when he was substitution. But yesterday he was excellent. He wasn't just attacking the ball; his fielding in the air was excellent. He hit over 3 great points and made a number of other points for players as well. And he was back foraging back in defence as well. He was covering Conor Whelan on a couple of occasions. So I liked the work rate there, and he worked well with good Robert doing a spot on there. John Donnelly had a huge game yesterday, and between the half of the 3 half hours, I think they scored something like 11 points. Keown was excellent. Donnelly was superb, one man of the match, and Tom Phelan as well. So look, they were bonuses, and Kilkenny has probably been out the year. He's probably been Kilkenny's most consistent player. He's really worked well in midfield. They brought on Jordan Malloy then from O'Loughlin Gales, and he played against Limerick down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and obviously the players that were injured were back for the next game. Jordan was brought on yesterday. He had 2 excellent points in midfield and really didn't look out of place at all. So some of the younger players and the newer players from Kilkenny have got a bit of game time. We've all seen Billy Brennan, we've seen Garrod Dunn. So there's new players there starting to, put their hands up and be counted. So Derek and his colleagues, assuming injuries abate at this stage, they're going to have a little bit of thinking to do as regards picking the team going forward. It's a good way to be. So, and Aidan Tallis yesterday in goal. Darren Brennan pulled himself off the team. Aidan Tallis in goal yesterday. Look, hands up. He had put the hand up and made the mistake that got Brian Concannon second goal. But that aside, he made a brilliant save from Cathal Mannion and save from Johnny Glynn back in inter-county action, first time 5 years yesterday, that would have won the game for Galway. So look, Kilkenny are not in a bad spot, but look, we just need to, and that's right, that Richie Reid and Cian Kenny do look a solid midfield pairing, and it mightn't be one we'd all have gone for at the start of the year, but so far so good. But look, it's early yet, and we just need to keep everything in context. But Derek, he'll be happy enough how things are progressing.
I might have caught Terence and McNaughton on the hop here. I had you up on screen for a minute, but you were looking down, Terence. I said I'd give you the nod a little bit early. How are things with you?
Good, Shim. How's you? How, Nickey? How are you?
Hello, Sambo. How are you going?
Good, Nickey.
Great win at the weekend. Well done to you. We had a win in Corrigan Park.
Nickey, in the words of the great John Malone, I loves me county.
Good man yourself. And why wouldn't you? That was a sweet win on Saturday. I'd say, I think I could nearly see you smiling there in the stand.
Oh, here. Does your heart good? Like, going to the game, I didn't see it coming. I got to be honest, and I think anybody that follows Antrim after the Kilkenny game and people coming and going and different things and that there, but it just shows you what mindset does to a team and believing that you can beat somebody, how you perform. Like, we deserved the game, outstanding, and I heard you talking there about Lee King. Lee King gave an exposition of hurling, like he's a joy to watch, but to score 2-11 and being the losing team, like, it says everything. It was a brilliant game too. It was a really, really entertaining game.
I said to Shane earlier that Antrim would probably have targeted Wexford, Dublin and Carlow, and with the view to maybe getting in as the third team in Leinster. It's a real possibility now.
Yeah, like, that's from another point of view, boys. That's what we got to do. We got to. The day of the moral victory's gone, and that this team actually has took a scalp now. I've been witnessing that scalp was past 2 or 3 years. We would look upon the Dublins and the Wexford just above us and that there, and we got to close that gap, and we did. But it means nothing if we don't go and beat Dublin now and Carlow, and we're well capable of that because we believe we can beat Dublin and Carlow, and that should be our aim now, and we should go for that now and hurl through the caution to one sort of thing. But I just say it's all about belief. It's belief. They're at home. They were playing Wexford. They know that they can hurl against Wexford, and that there's no real scars there. Like the last year, they only beat us by 4 points in a game where we never played in the first 20 minutes at all. But that's good for the county, and it's good for Ulster hurling. And as you said there earlier, Nickey, like we don't get much coverage for the game in Ulster, not there, and every wee bit we get, we got to grab onto it and hold it and milk it, like, to try and keep the game alive and progressing.
Did you think, Sambo, when after last week's 32-point loss to Kilkenny, obviously that was devastating enough, and then to go 7 points behind, were you fearful, or did you think that this fight back could come?
No, I got to be honest. Like, I thought that I actually seen them play an in-house game in Portugal. And not there.
That's where the tan came from.
Yeah, that's where the tan came from. And I didn't see it, to be honest. Lee Ching was kind of destroying us, and it wasn't the only one now. It wasn't a one-man show, Wexford. A young guy playing 21 of his name escapes me now, but he scored 6 points today. What was his name, Shane?
Keen Byrne.
He was class act too. Like he was, like he's one to look out for in the future. He knows what he's about, and we didn't look at like personally. And then when we made a switch, Paddy Burke onto Lee Ching, it kind of curtailed him. Like even giving away there was a time Paddy got booked. Lee Ching was going for his hat trick at that time, and Paddy fouled him. And I know this is probably wrong to say, but it's one of them good fouls that you give away, because he saved 2 points, and Paddy would be cute like that. He would know when to kill the ball and all the old-fashioned things about how the defender should behave. And then we get going and we get a run, and James McNaughton, Sean Elliott was outstanding. James McNaughton played well. I've always been a fan of James's, but he's one of them players that it frustrates the life out of you. There's days that he's not there, and there's days he just tears you apart and not there. And he was outstanding Saturday. Caleb Malloy, you know them balls, somebody pops you a ball, you just turn around and launch it, and the thing goes over the bar. Another day that could go over the corner flag, like, you know, one of them. But it went for us, and it was a big, big victory for us. Beyond no illusion, we weren't in a good place within the county. All the people were saying going to Portugal or wondering what a waste of money and all that. You know the stories yourself, boys, about all this. But it's all forgot about now. We're all in the high. Tyrone Miners bit awfully at the weekend as well. So Ulster Hurling's still alive anyway.
That Paddy Burke is a serious cornerback, Sambo. I have to say, I've seen him a number of times, and he's up there with the best.
Honestly, Nickey, I hate talking about him because he's my own club. You said about the guy 2 fields away from here, Paddy Burke's house. I'm looking out at it, and I've had him as a kid and that there. And he's a serious operator. Paddy Burke would walk on to any other county team in Ireland as a cornerback. He knows he's. I'm not saying this to comparison now, but he's in the role of a JJ Delaney, the hook, the flick, the block, the things that nobody sees. He's not doing these big spectacular things, but you only appreciate a good Paddy Burke is when you have to hurl on him. You know.
And did you catch this game, Nickey?
Yeah, I did. I saw that game. Yeah. It was a fantastic match. I have to say that the goal that was the last second goal that Wexford that Antrim got, the run of James McNaughton up on the left-hand side. I mean, he really should have been dispossessed about 4 or 5 times, and then managed to reclaim the ball, got into the end line and sent it straight across the goal, where I think it was Niall McKenna put it into the back of the net. I mean, that was the goal that really turned the game fully in Antrim's favour. But it was the never-say-die attitude of the Antrim players to keep going. And in many respects, Antrim's thing is, Samba put his finger on it, they don't feel overawed playing Wexford on the occasion because they've generally competed well. They don't feel overawed playing Dublin, and they wouldn't feel overawed playing Carlow. But when they play Kilkenny or Galway, it just psychologically the players, I think, give up before the game. And that's what happened in Nolan Park a week ago. When I was talking to Darden after the game as well, he was definitely disappointed more at the manner in which they capitulated rather than the actual loss of the game. And it was a fair turnaround to get the players mentally right to take on Wexford, because normally they don't have any inhibitions when they play a Wexford or a Dublin or a Carlow, as I said.
And Sambo, like James McNaughton, obviously unbelievable, setting up both goals. Sean Elliott was just brilliant, like looks like a real top forward. At the very end, Conor Bohill's his hook on Liam McGovern, and that could have stolen the game for Wexford. But not only was that a brilliant moment, but it also stood out to me that how often did Conor Bohill go from wing back up to contest the puckouts at wing forward and won them? And that was a nice little quirk from Antrim.
Yeah, well, you got to use the assets you have as sort of thing, but that's the attitude that we've been crying out for this year. Antrim and not there, like. Used to your hurling men, you well know a good hook's as good as putting a ball in the back of the net sometimes, you know, and some things, them things get overlooked, and it's the hooks and the blocks. That's why the turnovers and hooks and blocks were always important or still are important. It's an example of how hard the team's working and not standing back admiring somebody and giving them too much respect. Like Nickey put his finger on it there, like when Antrim goes down and everybody's telling these players, like even in my day, like you were going down to play these teams, you say, how much are you going to get beat by the day? Like people thought Kilkenny was all 6'6", 4 foot wide. Tipperary were gods and that there. But at the end of the day, like an 18-year-old and Antrim is the same as an 18. We have as good a coaches in Antrim as there is anywhere. And it's getting that belief and consistency. But the only problem that we would have from other counties is like we're small Hurling or small pool from and like any club, you're hoping that a group of fellas come along at the same time and that are good players, right attitude and that there, and that's all you're hoping for. We cannot afford to play without our top 15, 16, 18, 19 players in the panel. When they're not there, you're not replacing like with like. So naturally, the truth of the matter is you're not as good. And especially the modern game, the possession game, if you have one guy it's not in soul and he's getting destroyed, that can cause problems for everybody around him and out there. But if everybody steps up the plate and shoulders, and that's what Antrim need to do now. No matter what happens in Nolan Park and my generation or my own club and my own county, like I would plant spuds in Nolan Park if I had a choice. I'd never had a good day in it in my life. But we have to put that to bed and just, we have to go for this. Like this Wexford game is a real boost of adrenaline, positivity, and we have to go to Dublin now, and we have to not stand back and not any old scars out there. We have to take the game to Dublin and really got this. Like there's a realistic chance we could get third place here in Leinster, and that's the reality, and that's what we got to aim for, and that's what we need to do. Like, and that would be a massive boost for Ulster Hurling. Like,
and do you know, and come back to you in a second, Nickey, but Sambo, what happened with Jared Walsh then? He was brilliant in the game, got himself a couple of points, fired over an unbelievable sideline cut when it really mattered late on. But he was being interviewed by BBC afterwards, and he was leaving on his helmet, and he later on explained that Ryan Stranney, who had lost his life, had sold the helmet to him maybe 6 years earlier or something like that, and he was wearing it almost as a tribute. That was quite something.
Yeah, it's one of them freak things that happen. Like the hurling world in Antrim is a very small community. Like we all know each other. We all know that. They got young fella tragedy, 4:30 a.m. heading to work. I know an elderly man coming up the wrong road. Just such a tragic accident. And Jared bought the helmet off him when he went to Australia, not there, and it was a nice touch. But Jared is a lovely young fella. Like I would be giving out with Jared at time, launching balls aimlessly wide and not there. But I generally had a great belief when he stood up to take that line ball. Jared's a great dead ball expert, and it's a bit like when you believe in something that it's a bit like Joe Canning standing over a ball at the time. I just had a gut feeling that ball was going to go over. I was standing right opposite him in the terrace, and I was just I was actually standing along with Martin Story and Ray Murphy, two Wexford men, and I say this ball's over the bar, and they were kind of looking at me, aye, right. And they got a coarse slap in the back of the head when the ball went over the bar, I'll tell you.
Nickey, do you believe that Antrim can go and do this? Now, if you go back to the league, and this was before some of those Dunloy players came back, that hadn't been on the panel or taken themselves off the panel, they almost beat Dublin only for a goalkeeping mistake late on. It's a converted wing back playing in goals at the time, so you'd certainly cut him a bit of slack. But like Antrim are going to go in believing that they can do this.
Have to believe, of course they can. I mean, they've beaten Wexford in Corrigan Park. They've never been much between themselves in Dublin, and there's never been much between themselves in Carlow. There's a real possibility now for Antrim to get third place, at least in this Leinster Championship. And that would be a huge achievement for them. And it's totally within their own hands now. They've actually dug the foundation at the weekend by beating Wexford. So it's very much in their own hands now, the games against that I've talked about. And look, Dublin are going to feel exactly the same way. They feel they'll be in for third position as well. Now, look, I don't want to be dismissing Wexford at this stage, because Wexford could put the cat among the pigeons by defeating Galway in Wexford next weekend. Tipp could put the cat among the pigeons by defeating Waterford in Welsh Park. But we're working on the basis of purely what happened over the weekend and assessing where we think things might be based on that. But we could have a different view next Monday. That's the great thing about the Hurling Championship. There's as much uncertainty in it as there is, probably more uncertainty in it than there is any certainty. So it's up to anybody. But right now, the team that's probably feeling the sorriest of everybody is probably Cork.
And I wanted to ask you that before I let you go, Nickey, because you've been great with your time already. Like that Cork Clare game, it was an absolute cracker. Obviously, bit of indiscipline cost Cork yet again. This time, Sean O'Donoghue, who's, you know, doing as well as anyone can do against Shane O'Donnell, he was on a yellow card and third man tackle on Shane O'Donnell. And look, it didn't kill Shane O'Donnell or anything like that, but it was indiscipline, and he deserved a yellow card for it, and he had to go. And ultimately, it cost them, and maybe Cork are going to go out of the championship because of that, Nick. I think we lost Nickey there. You might take up that point, Sambo. I'm not sure if you saw the game.
Yeah. I would put my shoulder to the wheel too, Kieran, or Shane as a voice about too many games on at the same time. Like, something has to be done about that. That can't go on. Like even though you own a bar and you're trying to watch 3 TVs and you're trying to get GA going and RT going, and it's a proper nightmare and it shouldn't happen. But that's just my point. But the reality is, yeah, but I don't know. Like even what Nickey was saying, a draw of Kilkenny and Wexford, or Galway and Kilkenny, helps Wexford a bit. You know, Cork have come from losing 2 games before and come through. Hurling's a game that you never know, but like, the reality is Cork's in a bad position this morning. There's no question about it now, and not there. And it wasn't enforced. It's a yellow card. There's no argument about it. Like, we've all done things in hurling fields we weren't proud of or felt bad about at times and not there. And it's just, these things happen, and it costs your team a game. You know, the game probably in the long run, and that's the reality of it.
Yeah, Nickey, hopefully we can hear you this time. Just your thoughts on Cork, and did they implode really? No, I think we're having a bit of trouble with that. Oh, and his voice was just coming through and I kicked him out. But what about some of those goals that in the game? I mean, Patrick Horgan, that rise and then lift over Eibhear Quilligan was so cheeky. His 21-yard free into the back of the net. And, you know, there was a lot of talk, and I would be included in this for sure, about the older players last week against Cork, or Waterford, because as I said, between Lahan, Harnedy and Horgan, they had 10 shots from open play in the first half, scored just 1 point, and I felt it was hurting them. And obviously, if you have that many older players on the pitch at one time, are you going to get the tackle rate there? Now, on Thursday's show, I was saying I'd still start Harnedy and Horgan because there's so much credit in the bank. Geez, Horgan really, they both delivered, really.
Yeah, there's no question about it, Shane. But that's what you have to weigh up, really, when you're picking a team as experienced and cuteness. Like, the way he dealt with that goal, like, a younger player might have tried to pick that ground, get caught. Like, it was just so composure in the ball, been there, done that many times before. Like, maybe if you had replaced him, would a young fella done the exact same thing? Maybe not there. But you have to weigh that up at times. Whenever a guy's got that many miles in the clock and not there, you kind of have to weigh it up. But Cork have such talent coming through and not there. Like if they don't come through this year, like, it really is bad for them. Like, for a county like Cork 2 years in a row not to come out of Munster would be very, very difficult for them, and it probably shouldn't happen, like, if we all be honest about it. But like, the game against Waterford, like, after watching, you just say, same old Cork, here we go again, not knowing what you're getting, what team's going to turn up and not there. And they have to Cork have to start putting that to bed. Like the whole of Ireland are saying what Cork team's going to turn up, you know, and that's the problem that you have, is that inconsistency, and no more so in my own county. Like, that's the problem we have, is inconsistency. These players, like, I speak past my own players, like the James McNaughtons in this world are all getting pats in the back this week. James McNaughton and Caleb Malloy and Sean Elliott, they have to go next week and they have to do it again. That's what good hurlers do. That's what great hurlers do. They just don't turn up one game in 5, and when things go for you and you have a breaking ball and you look good, you have to make the game. You have to. The end games is not going for you. You have to make it happen for you, and that's what the great players do. And if they want to become great players, that's what they need to do. They have to make it happen for them, and that's my challenge to them. And that's the same with Cork. Like, you can't. They're too inconsistent for me, you know. We all know the talent they have and the skill, and when Cork's going well, they're capable of winning All Ireland, no question about it. They're capable of playing against anybody. But it's that inconsistency they bring at times that, if you're a Cork fan, would frustrate the life out of you.
So hopefully you're coming through loud and clear this time, Nickey. Your picture's clear as a bell, actually.
I've just switched it to a different device, so maybe there's a message there, Shane, in future. So Apologies for that. Dodgy. I won't say who are my internet provider is, because it's pretty embarrassing. But however, look, as far as Cork is concerned, I would say though the scoring at 326, 324 was very high. I thought the goals that came, were sloppy enough from defensive point of view. I know Cork lost their captain. Look, it was a silly challenge, and I think on reflection he'll realise that you can't do that sort of thing, the impact it would have on your team. But look, Cork have an issue. I would have preferred to see Cork playing some of the younger players over the last while. I just feel maybe that they haven't blooded enough of younger players, and now they can't really change much at this stage. They're now in a difficult situation. I'm not going to dismiss Cork yet. I still think that they're capable of possibly getting that last third spot. There's a possibility the way results go, but it will be a big disappointment from Cork. We should be seeing more from them. I mean, they're a county that have not had any success at senior level for a long, long time. And with a county of such talented hurlers and strong clubs, they'll be very disappointed with that, to be quite frank about it. And now, having said all of that, if Limerick were not so strong around, there'd probably be a better sharing of the trophies that have been there, because they've been just awesome over the last 4, 5, 6 years. But Cork will be very disappointed, and particularly on their own patch to have lost out yesterday. But look, credit to Clare. They were on a tricky situation as well. Whoever was going to lose yesterday was going to be in a tricky spot. And it's ironic that Cork had 2 matches lost in the Munster Championship this year before Tipperary poked the ball.
Yeah, actually, when you put it that way. Well, who impressed you for Clare? I mean, Sambo, because for long spells, they were, I don't know, it felt like some of their key players weren't in it. David Fitzgerald ultimately got a goal, but he was quiet for long spells. John Conlon took a long time to get into the game. Aidan McCarthy, I think he scored a couple from play eventually. Just Mark Rogers is a great talent. But who impressed you when it came down to it?
Well, obviously Dugan and out there, but Shane, you have to give credit to Cork too. Once you get out against, you're not going to dominate every day you go out. You're marking quality players that are ahead of their game too, and and I was listening to you earlier on there, I know it's all doom and gloom in your own county at the minute and out there, but geez, you're up against a serious team, and it's no disrespect getting beat with that Limerick team or that there. They are awesome, but Clare haven't, Cork have got serious hurlers. It's just getting that consistency day in, day out is what every management in Cork have been trying to do this past 20 years, and not there. Nobody's going to question their talent or their not there. And I don't want to go down the road with their character or anything out there. Them players have character too and not there. But sometimes things happen in the match and not there. But it's staying at it and trying to break even. Like every county player you meet is as good as you, if not better. And some days success is just breaking even with a guy and not there. And you're meeting and not there. And you're not going to put a team out and 15 players dominate at this level. You're going to have certain players that are going to be okay and break even and not there. But it's just taking them breaks when they come and not there. And Clare took the breaks when they come and not there. But the one thing I'll say about the modern player not there is, I was involved in the Irish shanty team not there, and the first time I met McInerney and Dugan not there, the size of these men are just I was standing Whitten and Martin Story and them arriving Sunday, and the Wexford team were going in by me, and I was thinking they're small enough, and then Lee Cheng kind of stepped out of the crowd to shake my hand. What a beast of a man. I wouldn't fancy marking on man for 70 minutes. The build of these men now, and I had breakfast this morning with a physio, and he's a full-time physio with a Irish league club. And he's also physio for an Ulster football team. And I don't want to name him in case he's not there. But he told me that the inter-county football team, Gaelic football team, is day and nights ahead of the Irish League soccer team. And they're getting paid. He told me it's not even the same planet, the commitment level, the fitness of them, the standard of them, and not there. And that's a professional that wouldn't know one end of a hurling stick from another. And that's the truth of it. He's a professional, and he's involved with an Irish League soccer team, a very good Irish League soccer team, and an Ulster football team. And he says it's day and night, the difference. Day and night, the commitment levels and that there. I don't know, but I'm in all of these hurlers these days. I'm like standing watching the likes of Lee Ching for 70 minutes is like it's worth the paying in value. It really is.
Nickey, when you consider that Clare, faded out, whatever way you want to put it, against Limerick, to be hit with this many blows from Cork during the game, like Cork's comeback early in the second half was brilliant, and obviously down the stretch, and they even had that chance from Damien Cahalane at the very end. Like it's a potentially a very big moment for Brian Lohan's team, because there had to be doubts after the way they faded out against Limerick.
Of course there were, and I mean those doubts obviously had to be worked on in training in the past week, and this could have gone either way. I mean, Sam was 100% right, where nobody is questioning the character of the Cork team or Andy. They are great hurlers down there in Cork. I just made the observation that I would have liked to have seen trying out some of the younger players who've excelled over the under 20s over the last couple of years. I think some of those guys probably needed to be brought on. They won't change it now. They've got huge guys who have been with the team over the last number of years. This game could have gone anyway yesterday, Shane. I mean, the fact that Clare got out by 2 points in the end, it could so easily have been a 1 point loss had Damien Cahalane's shot gone in. And that's just the reality of it. It was a very tight game. I just felt that the way the goals were being banged in cited a little bit of sloppiness on the part of defending. So, I mean, there was 6 goals scored in that match, and I just feel that maybe some of them, when the two teams reflect on and will ask questions about their defending or their methodology of defending, because the ball has to be stopped coming in from outside as well as being cleared around the goal area. So, look, both have to reflect, but Clare are back on the horse again, if I could put it that way, big time. They were hugely disappointed. I know Brian Lohan, and I know his demeanour after the Limerick match was one of awful disappointment. But I think one thing, it's interesting that after the Limerick match, he made no issue whatsoever of what were perceived to be square balls. He made no issue out of it. He just sucked that one up. He said, we have a match against Cork, we get on with that, and let's forget about whinging about what was square balls or not square balls. There was no point anyway, the game was over. So I think as a manager, he took great responsibility with that. And I'm sure when they went into training the next Tuesday night, he also told his players to forget about what happened. They could not redo that situation now. It was all over, and they need to focus on Cork. And at the end of the day, I think the fact that Shane O'Donnell is back in full, he obviously is one of the best forwards around. And they obviously didn't even have Tony Kelly in the matchday squad yesterday. But look, they're a good, strong team. But would they match Limerick if it came to a Munster final? Probably not. There's no question about it. But Limerick are on the march towards 5 in a row, and it's going to take an almighty performance for somebody, or a little blip from Limerick someday, where it just might not happen. It's not impossible that it could be caught, but based on what we've seen, taking just this weekend as a picture, they're the team to be beaten still.
Well, I'm sure you'd agree with that, Sambo, that Limerick are number one. But is the gap, has it been exaggerated by how poor Tipperary were, or Limerick full value for the 15 points and they just wiped the floor with Tipp? How do you look at that?
I thought they were full value, to be honest. I think Limerick are just an awesome team, and they like you said earlier on, Shane, about they were a 10 out of a 10 team performance, and that's the one thing about them. They're the ultimate team performance game. Cian Lynch, I think if he was standing on his own in front of the keeper, he would set somebody else up. He's so unselfish, and they just seem to work with each other. They pop, and I can only see them getting better, and that's the scary thing. Like 9 points down against Clare, the whole of Ireland was hoping Clare was going to hold on, but they get it together just for that period, and they've got awesome players all over the pitch and a great system, as they talk about, and they play for each other. It's hard to find a weak spot in them. Like, to be honest, like if they bring their A game, I just can't see anybody beating them. And I'm one of the ones going for the underdog. When Limerick were going for the first All-Ireland, we all wanted to see them win an All-Ireland. But like your own Nickey, once you start winning every year, you want to see them beaten. We all want to see Limerick beaten.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. But yeah. I would still think that Kilkenny on a given day could match Limerick. I mean, forget the league semi-final now. But if go back on last year's All-Ireland final, and there was not a huge amount between those two teams. A couple of balls in the second half that Kilkenny fluffed could have ended up being scores. So I would not be unhappy to see Kilkenny, and have to come through Leinster and all the other games first, of course, being up against Limerick in an All-Ireland final. And I think maybe at the moment Kilkenny might be the best equipped team to take on Limerick, because they wouldn't be overawed by the occasion. They would recognise what they're playing is an absolutely powerful force in hurling, the best there probably has been around. But I think Kilkenny would relish another crack at Limerick. And I think the fact that they beat them in the league semi-final, it mightn't seem a lot, but psychologically for the players, it's something they managed to do.
That's the All-Ireland final that I think Anita's looking for. Kilkenny and Limerick again. I think that's what all hurling fans are looking for. And obviously Kilkenny with their full team out, Mullins and Cody and everybody back in good health and that there. Like Kilkenny have a serious outfit there too. And I watched that game there, Kilkenny and Galway, and and Kilkenny have started to get a few strength and depth, as we talk about, a few guys that are going to put their hand up for a place too that are not regulars for Kilkenny, like the guys that replaced Mullins and Cody and that there. Kilkenny didn't do a whole lot wrong yesterday, and I agree totally with that. I think they're the one team that could maybe spoil the party. And here, I for one that's the All-Ireland final that I think might happen, and I hope probably will happen.
Nickey, there's a couple of comments coming in saying rose-tinted glasses that Limerick wiped the floor of Kilkenny last year.
No, I think that's unfair. I think Limerick deserved to win the All-Ireland last year and came very good in the second half. But I think Kilkenny made a great go of it, and it wasn't a one-sided game by any manner of means. There wasn't an awful lot in it. The best team won. But I would not dismiss Kilkenny. I mean, I know the way this county thinks when it goes in against the best teams. I still think Limerick are favourites to win the All-Ireland. Do I think they'll win it? I think probably. But I do think Kilkenny in an All-Ireland final, I think they wouldn't be overawed by the occasion. And I think they're well capable of rising to the occasion, to what would be required to play Limerick. Because I think tactically, Kilkenny have gotten better at managing what Limerick are capable of doing. Have they managed it fully? Have they learned it all? Maybe not yet. Who knows? But there's a lot of hurling to be played between now and whenever this All-Ireland final day appears in July, I'm afraid.
Okay, I have to put you on the spot and ask you at this point, who are the three teams getting out of both provinces? We might start with you, Sambo.
Kilkenny, Galway, Antrim.
Lovely.
And that's a challenge to my own county. I'm saying that for challenge to my own county. Like, obviously, Dublin would still be favourites if you're in the bookies. I would understand that. And as Nickey said already, Wexford's well capable of doing something. Wexford won't expect that mindset thing. They believe they can go and beat Kilkenny for some reason. And they still, it's the mind's an amazing thing. Munster, I'm going Limerick, Clare. I'm going to throw a cat among a pigeon here. I've a feeling that Cork could do something crazy. I just have that thing that they'll throw the Cork are now in a no-one position, and that's when they'll probably be most dangerous.
But they have to play Limerick next.
Yeah, but Limerick's more or less there, boys. Let's be honest.
Yeah, they usually pull up on teams, don't they?
Yeah.
What do you think then, Nickey?
I think Kilkenny, Galway, and I got to go with Antrim. I think there's a chink of light there now. The door has opened for Antrim, and the ball is in their court at this stage. So, I mean, maybe it's a little bit romantic in me, in that now that Sambo's on the culture, I'd be afraid to go against them in case I get a clip ear from the next time. But look, there's an opportunity for Antrim here. I'm just going to go with that one. I think in Munster it'll be Limerick, Clare, and look, I think Waterford will probably pull something out. I think Davy will come with something. I think he's got his players. They're playing a different game now. He's letting players, giving them a little bit more freedom to use their innate skills that are there. And I think Waterford might just pinch that last spot. But look, Shane, we could have a different version of that this day next week.
Of course you could, but isn't that some game to look forward to now? Liam Cahill and Davy along the line and that there, just all teed up like the whole of hurling country is going to be in one place. You know, what a weekend to look forward to.
Anyway, I was just going to say, Nickey, go, Shane, by the way.
I know. But someone you know well, Nickey, Virgin TV news reporter Gavin Riley. No ears forever. Remember 2008 when Kilkenny put up 3-30 in the All-Ireland final? Nobody could foresee the end of that dominance. A year later, Kilkenny needed a soft penalty to beat Tipp. Yeah, it was about 25 yards out. And the year after, Tipp beat them by, well, it was 8 points. But I'm happy to stretch it out to 10, Gavin. These things can end quicker than anybody expects. Any comment back? You want to scold him?
I do. I can just wonder why Gavin Riley is not working on his political job at the moment. He has time to listen to me blathering in on this program. But he knows he's hurling, that young man, and he's right. All eras come to an end. And I reiterate again, I make no apologies for saying Kilkenny are possibly the nearest challengers to Limerick at the moment. I still did think Limerick will win the All-Ireland, but I will never dismiss Kilkenny's prospects. They're always capable of doing it, and but we'll see what the next couple of weeks. I think we're probably jumping ahead of ourselves a little bit at this stage, but it's the next couple of weeks will be interesting on many fronts.
Before I let you go, I might just read out some of the other results, and then if you have any final thoughts, please throw them in. But just from the Joe McDonagh, Kerry beat Down, so they're keeping their winning run going, 26 points to 212. Offaly saw off Westmeath, so Westmeath have lost back-to-back games. That was 223 to 120. Meath 116, Laois put up 729, so that was a punishing victory. In the Christie Ring, Sligo 214, Tyrone 217, and you said about Tyrone beating Offaly at the minor, so what a weekend for them. London 220, Wicklow 14, Kildare 219, Derry 18. In the Nickey record, Armagh 20, Roscommon 21, Donegal 427, Monaghan 15, and Louth 17 points, Mayo 322. Finally, the Laurie Maher, Lancashire 21, Cavan 225. Longford had a 222 to 3-9 victory over Leitrim. Warwickshire 8 points, Fermanagh 327. So any final thoughts on the weekend, Sambo, before we let you go?
No, the one thing, like, I agree with everybody. Like, too many games, too close together, same time. Like, surely, if you're a marketing department, you have to do some of that. I can't stress enough how starved we are of hurling, and to ram it all in a couple of weeks. Like, Nickey's obviously a lot more power around Grove Park than the likes of me and you, Shane, and out there. He's in their ear. Like, Nickey, you got to start fighting for us harder up there and get that something sorted out, Nickey. We can't keep going on with this. Like, no,
I'm afraid my days of influence in Croke Park are absolutely gone. I'm afraid.
Nickey, don't start that now, Nickey, it's us you're talking to.
Anyway, look, we'll see. I'm not. If I have to say something about the state of hurling, I'll say it. But I do think that I knew Gavin Riley would probably talk about 31-point loss to Down there. So that there he goes. He has connections with Meath Hurling, Shane, that you wouldn't know about. So it was a bad day at the office for Meath Hurling. They need to get themselves sorted out. But look, we do need hurling to get plenty of limelight. Programs like this obviously help it, certainly, but we do need the mainstream media to realise that, and not just because it's our national game. It's a very special game that people around the world are in awe of this sport, and we need to be very careful how we nurture and market it here. And right now, I think we should be doing a better job on that score.
Yeah, I agree on that. And look, in terms of spreading it, delighted that you both came on the show as well, because you had plenty of brilliant insights and analysis. So thanks very much, lads, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Take care, Shane. Good luck. Bye.
Nickey. Cheers.
Okay. Shane. Thank you. So brilliant to have the lads on there. And the amount of comments coming in today has been off the scale. So keep those coming in. We always love having those in. Just in terms of the Joe McDonagh, I was just reading out the results a little while ago. Laois are top, and they're 4 points from 2 games. Down, they've got a couple of wins on the board as well. Kerry, I should say, are looking good. Just in terms of the football over the weekend, now I must admit that going down the country to the Limerick versus Tipperary game, which I obviously wish I didn't go to at this stage, I did miss out some of the football. I watched Armagh come back against Down and win by 13 points to 2-6. Pretty dour game, I have to say, for much of it. But Armagh got over the line. They're not going to care, and they're back into an Ulster final. And they're going to meet Donegal, who had an 18 points to 16 win over Tyrone at Celtic Park. I didn't see this game. I just saw some of the highlights. But look, again, pretty dour game. Not that they care all that much. Jim McGuinness was saying afterwards, RT, it means everything. There was a chant for Donegal there in the last couple of minutes of injury time in extra time. You could just sense the energy, and listen, that's what it's all about. We want that for our supporters, but we also want it for the players. This is what it's all about. It's the players being part of the big days and trying to get over the line on big days. It's the Ulster Championship. Teams are very well organised, very well prepared. They play on the edge and ask a lot of questions of you, and you just have to try and find those solutions. That's what it's really all about. And we'll go back to ground zero in 2 weeks' time. It's going to be a really tough battle, and everybody has to prepare for that. Also, in the Leinster Championship, Dublin saw off Offaly. That was 322 to 11 points. And while that is very comprehensive, 20-point defeat, in a way, you're almost relieved that it wasn't uglier than that. And Kildare, 13 points, Louth 17. Obviously, Kildare have had a dreadful season, losing all their league games, needing a last-second score to get across the line against Wicklow, and now this performance here. So, brilliant from Louth. They're back in a Leinster final, and hoping to capitalise on the work that they've done there. Like, a very good season for Jerry Brown in his first season after taking over from Mickey Hart. That's pretty much it for the show. A reminder that we're brought to you by orgaretro.com. Use the promo code OurGame and you'll get 15% off. There's a huge selection of GA gear on there, whether it's jumpers, jerseys, zip-up tops, the whole lot. In terms of Goat of the Week, can I think of a Goat of the Week? I'd probably give it to Peter Casey, what he had to go through. And up until that happened, he'd had a brilliant game. So, really, really tough one for him. I'd also say on the football side of things, just by dint of the amount of injuries that he's had in the last couple of years, Oisin O'Neill looked like such a promising player for Armagh, obviously brother of Regan O'Neill, and that he was able to come on and make a bit of an impact. I was delighted I interviewed him a couple of years ago, so I was delighted to see, and I was always kind of wondering how will he get on, especially with, his brother being so good, and delighted to see that he was back on the pitch and able to take part in what was a big win for them. So look, that's it for the show this Monday. We'll be back later in the week talking plenty more GAA. So please do subscribe, like, comment, the whole lot, and we'll see you in the next show.